Hello there, everyone, and welcome to GamePoints episode 332. Weekly little get together. We talk about recent gaming news. I'm, as always, your host, Tim Brown, and tonight we're talking about how the Callisto Protocol has essentially been canceled in Japan. We have some major shakeups at Rocksteady, the guys that make the Arkham games of the upcoming Suicide Squad. And there could be finally, some more Deus Ex on the way, albeit very far from now. But first, before we get into any of that, I want everyone here to know that this is an audience interactive podcast. So if you're watching here live at Twitch TV /GamePoints, or later over at any myriad of video hosting platforms, be it YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, etc., feel free to join in the conversation with any questions, comments, concerns that you might have. Just try to keep them germane to the topics on hand. Also, if you like what you see here, you know what every streamer wants: likes, bits, subs, follows, all that good stuff. Let's go ahead and get right into things with this first story up here. And this one's kind of a little near and dear to my heart because I'm really looking forward to this game. I love survival horror, and I appreciate what they're doing here. And I'll get into all that in a second. First up, via Video Game Chronicle. Hey there, Morathon. How you doing? Well, we'll start right up here with from Video Game Chronicle. The Callisto Protocol canceled in Japan after developer decides against cuts. So, to the article itself. The Callisto Protocol has been canceled in Japan after its developer determined it would not be able to get a rating with the game without cuts. From the press statement. We have decided to discontinue the Japanese version of the Callisto Protocol. We have determined that the game cannot pass 0 rating in its current state and that change of the content will not provide the experience players expect. We appreciate your understanding in Japan, end quote. The account then said that they would provide refunds to those who pre-ordered the title. The reason why I like this so much is because I'm starting to see signs of more and more studios no longer bowing to pressure to change what their artistic vision is. As someone who tends to be a First Amendment / free speech absolutist, I am jazzed to see them rather than change what they had for their vision. They'd rather just say, no, thank you, we're just not going to release there. Now, not to give Striking Distance too much credit, they could have also just went the only way they could have said to themselves, the only way they could be able to make all the changes that Japan wanted was to massively rewrite the game itself and the way it works, given how violent and visceral the combat appears to be. That said, I am going to go ahead and shout out things that I think are good moves, and I appreciate the fact that Striking Distance is sticking to their guns here, saying, hey, Japan, sorry, we're not going to change our vision for the game. Too bad. For the people who are looking forward to playing in Japan, I'm sure there are a myriad of ways to import copies in to let you experience the Callisto Protocol, and hopefully might spur some of you into pressure into, let's say, finding a way to remove some more of the government restrictions against what is and is allowed in your country. Not saying that America is perfect in that regard either, but I'm liking that I'm seeing more things finally standing up to censorship, saying no. Gaming, not gaming related, you had Rumble doing something very similar with France very recently today, where they just said, no, we'd rather just not operate in your country, thank you. Now, the real question is, would Striking Distance have had the stones to say this to, say, Saudi Arabia or China? The big boys when it comes to sales and pressuring games to change. Let's take a look at chat here. On the topic, I can see this as a good thing, especially if it changes cuts would change your vision of whatever you would say the game, then keep to it, instead of bowing to pressure. Something to be proud of, I guess. I agree. Exactly. But once again, to be fair, I highly doubt the Callisto Protocol was going to light the Japanese sales charts on fire either. I'd be more curious to see if Squaresoft, or Square shows you how old I am, Square Enix would have done this with the upcoming Final Fantasy. For some reason, Final Fantasy was getting refused classification in Japan, or Capcom of Resident Evil, games that would typically sell much better in Japan than what I would imagine the Callisto Protocol will. However, like I said, I'm going to praise good things when I see them, and this, in my opinion, is a good move. Apologies to fans who are looking forward to playing Callisto Protocol in Japan, but as I also said, I'm sure you'll be able to find many a way to play this game when it comes out, and getting around your government's onerous censorship laws, especially in this case. Let me know what you think down below, by the way. I want to know, this is one of those topics I want to hear more on, because this is more of an opinion than it is me just reporting factual news or anything like that. So I want to know what all of you out there are thinking as well. Let's go ahead and move on to the next topic here. Something to be worried for the future, but okay in the short term. A message from David Haddad. This is someone from Rocksteady, essentially talking about how two of the major names from Rocksteady, Sefton Hill and Jamie Walker, are leaving the studio. To the actual press release. Co-founders and studio heads Sefton Hill and Jamie Walker have made the decision to leave the studio. We are very proud to have worked alongside Jamie and Sefton, who have led their talented teams to create some of the best games in the world. From the critically acclaimed Batman Arkham franchise to their evolutionary think of Suicide Squad, they have been great leaders of the team. Visiting Rocksteady Studios have always been a highlight for me personally. The attention to detail, the energy, the people have sense of what it's like to be in a high-performing studio. They have committed the highest quality and excellence across all facets of the game development while ensuring an outstanding culture of caring for their employees. With Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League nearly finished, they have both decided to leave Rocksteady at the end of 2022 and will begin a new adventure in gaming. We have the utmost respect and gratitude for Jamie and Sefton and wish them all the best in their endeavor. And like many fans, we look forward to what they are doing next. The article then goes on to mention who's taking over. That would be Nathan Burlow, longtime Rocksteady director of production and original founding member of the studio, is going to be taking up the lead as studio director, and Darius Sedegahan, apologies for mispronouncing that name likely, will take the reins as studio product director. The reason why I don't think this is necessarily bad in the short term is because Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League sounds very much near finished, and it's very likely that both Sefton Hill and Jamie, last name I forgot already, Jamie Walker, their roles are more or less finished at this game. I'd imagine that they're in the polishing up stages, maybe take a couple more months if they really want to delay it again, just to fine tune it. But it sounds like the heavy lifting, not to diminish what's left on there, has been finished already. So if you're concerned about the quality of the Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League as a game with these two leaving, I wouldn't be that worried about it, at least in the short term. And they are sticking around to the end of the year, so it's not like it's effective immediately. However, one thing I would be very concerned for is, yes, exactly, Morathon, what this means for the games after this. Sefton Hill and Jamie Walker are not leaving the games industry. It sounds like, from how this is worded, to move on to their new adventure in gaming, that they're going to be creating another studio from the ground up. And it is not uncommon when people who have been with a company for a long time leave that they tend to also take the talent with them. So, what does that mean for Rocksteady? And keep in mind, this is all hypothetical. None of this has happened yet. I would imagine that there are a bunch of developers at Rocksteady who will stick around until the final bits of Suicide Squad are finished up, so they could potentially get any production bonuses that may or may not be assigned to how well the game sells, or Metacritic scores, those insidious ways they kind of try to keep talent on there. And once those bonuses get paid out, I would not be surprised if there was a massive talent drain at Rocksteady to go to whatever the hell Sefton Hill and Jamie Walker, is it Walker? I keep forgetting the guy's goddamn name. Jamie Walker set up, because they are going to be in what I think is clearly setting up a new team. And like I said, there is a pattern of big names leaving studios and then pilfering the talent from there. Look no farther than when Zampella and Vince Zampella and Ward left Infinity Ward. Zampella and who's the other guy from Infinity Ward? Anyways, Zampella left Infinity Ward. They took a lot of people with them as well. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw something like that would happen when they created Respawn. That could make future Rocksteady games, well, no longer Rocksteady, as it were. At that point, you're now facing the ship of Theseus moment, where is it really the same studio? Either way, that's going to be years from now before we see what might develop from that, if at all. I am just speculating. I'm just using past as prologue here. But I would be not concerned for Suicide Squad as much as whatever they have set up in the future. Big moves like this tend to come with some consequences. At the very least, they're losing the two of the big heads behind creating these amazing Arkham games, and what seems to be going to be an excellent Suicide Squad game. Admittedly, the last few years in games have been troubled, it seems, without a single AAA release going by with at least some moderate to severe issue dragging it down. So I'm not going to say Suicide Squad's excellent yet, the game's not out. I'll just keep that in mind. Anyways, let me know if you're also feared for Rocksteady as a studio afterwards. I think that they'll be fine in the end, but I do expect a talent drain of at least moderate significance when Sefton eventually creates whatever his new studio is going to be, or whatever he's going to go off and do. Moving on, as we start going through the news relatively quick here, this is via Bloomberg. Embracer Group shuts down Montreal video game studio. This one I found odd because I don't get some of it, but I don't think it's necessarily that surprising either. To the article. Video game publisher Embracer Group is shutting down Onoma, a Montreal, Canada-based video game studio that acquired just months ago. Onoma, formerly known as Square Enix Montreal, was best known for creating the Go series of mobile games such as Hitman Go. They also did like a Tomb Raider Go, or I think it was actually called like Lara Croft Go or something like that. A lot of the Western Square developed or Square owned IP they made Go games for. The company informed its employees Tuesday that some of the staff would be transferred to a sister studio, Eidos Montreal, said people familiar with the situation. A representative from Embracer confirmed Tuesday that the company is closing Onoma and said more than 200 employees would be impacted. The shutdown is unusual timing because Onoma was purchased in May and October 10th announced a new name and branding. The move appears to be a part of a larger cost-cutting initiative. Eidos Montreal has reduced the scope of one announced project and will cancel another one. It said that people familiar with the situation were asked not to be identified because they were not authorized to speak publicly. The company also plans to continue work, or rather, the company plans to work with Microsoft to help develop some games, including one in the Fable franchise led by UK-based Playground Games. This very much strikes me as the left hand, not necessarily talking to the right, because buying a studio for some of its talent and IP and then closing it down is not unusual. The unusual part to the story is they went out of the way to rebrand it. That's what's odd. And my gut tells me that some upper middle management person went, okay, I'm going to create the studio into something that I want. And then someone above head went, no, we have budget cuts coming. We need to reduce projects, shut these down, shut this down. And whatever his special prep project he was going to make with Onoma got thrown in the can along with whatever else Embracer decided to whack here. It happens, especially happens in companies the size of Embracer Group, who has 150 projects in development or something along those lines right now. Some massively stupid number of games in development. So I'm not surprised cuts had to be made somewhere, especially with the world economy kind of teetering on the brink at the moment. Of course, our best goes out to the employees of Onoma who got bought by one company, rebranded, maybe thought, hey, we're secure here. They're rebranding us, and then had the rug pulled out from under them. Hopefully, most of them get reassigned to Eidos Montreal if they can be. I'm not really too sure how many are going to be able to make that transition. However, redundancy is a thing, and you can't always bring everyone over. As far as the other stuff goes, we're going to talk about that in Video Game Chronicles articles, somewhat related to this as well. A new Deus Ex is reportedly interleaved at Eidos Montreal. Awesome. Very excited for this. So it sounds like Eidos Montreal might be expanding, hopefully, to take on some of these people from Onoma. To the article itself here. And that's according to Bloomberg reporter Jason Schreier, who we addressed in the previous article, who claimed on Tuesday the studio is also working on a new IP and collaborating with Microsoft on the Xbox games, including Fable. Embracer, I believe, is... I swear they're also helping Microsoft to do another game. Perfect Dark, I think. I think Embracer, was it Crystal Dynamics is offering help on Perfect Dark, and I think Crystal Dynamics is owned by Embracer now. Forgive me, I didn't do my due diligence on that. This is just kind of all clicking at the same time here. But I think Crystal Dynamics is owned by Embracer now. I think. And it makes sense that they would be trying to strengthen their partnership with Xbox. Sounds like they're kind of becoming a support, at least lending some of their support to upcoming Microsoft games. Embracer Group, back to the article. Embracer Group recently acquired a large part of Square Enix Western development team for around $300 million, including Crystal Dynamics, Eidos Montreal, Square Enix Montreal, and a catalog of IPs including Tomb Raider, Deus Ex, and Thief. A deal that I think Embracer was more interested in the IP for rather than the studios. But at least this way they can loan out some of their studios to big boys as well and get them some money on the side from that. On Tuesday, Bloomberg reported that Embracer plans to close the studio formerly known as Square Enix Montreal, just weeks after it was rebranded. We went over that already. In a series of follow-up tweets, Schreier claimed that some of Audemars' staff would be moving to Eidos Montreal and provide unofficial update on that studio's current projects. Schreier said the following. Eidos Montreal, which remains intact, canceled the Stranger Things-inspired Kids on a Bike game that was rumored recently. As an aside, I'm kind of glad that happened. I know they're trying to do the Kids on a Bike craze with Stranger Things, and then it getting remade and set in the 80s, and just a whole bunch of nostalgia for all of us growing up in the early to late 80s, even early 90s. But I can already see that trend getting burnt out quickly. And by the time it takes for a game to be developed to come out, no one will care anymore. At least, I don't think the lightning in the bottle moment would have passed at this point. Back to what Schreier said. It's now reportedly working on an IP that was recently rescoped, which would be referencing what he was mentioning in the Bloomberg article about how the scope of one announced project is being scaled down, reduced. And that a Deus Ex game is in very, very early development and co-dev partnerships with Xbox, including Fable. So it sounds like more than just Fable getting worked on by these guys, maybe someone else too. Maybe more work on Perfect Dark. The important thing to take away from all this is that Deus Ex game in very, very early development. I am super excited for this. I would love to see Deus Ex coming back. No idea if Adam Jensen is going to be returning. I know a lot of people keep pestering Elias to Fexus about whether or not he's coming back for it. Even if he knew anything about this, it would be under NDA all to hell, so he couldn't even give a hint as to what's going on. When you know he's involved is when he shuts up about it. If he stops answering any questions about it, then you know he's NDA'd on it, and then you can assume that's happening. But at this stage, they would just be playing. They're probably not even sure if they're going to bring Adam Jensen back as a character. They could be debating on whether or not they're remaking the first Deus Ex. They could be making whatever Project Snowblind was going to be. I know that came out of something else, but it originally started off as a multiplayer shooter set in the Deus Ex universe. There's a whole bunch of ways they can go with that franchise. Who knows what we're going to get. Finally, the article does mention that Embracer said in May it's envisioning releasing sequels, remakes, and remasters, spin-offs, and more for the Crystal Dynamics Eidos Montreal IPs it was acquiring. This jives with the fact that they recently did that survey talking about what would you like to see in Legacy of Kain game. Kind of excited for this. I love Legacy of Kain as an IP. I hope they don't do something like Nosgoth and give something more like Soul Reaver. Hell, give me a remake of the first Blood Omen and don't turn it into Soul Reaver. Soul Reaver's its own thing. Keep Blood Omen that weird top-down action RPG that it was in the first one with the Shakespearean soliloquies. Hell, I don't know if Simon Templeman's doing anything. Bring him back. He sounds even more grizzled now. I would love to see him reprise the role of Kain, even though I think he's starting to get up there. Can't bring back Tony J, though. Tony J is long dead, unfortunately. Which also makes me think that they might be doing some remakes and remasters of Deus Ex as well. Those first two Deus Ex games could really use a coat of paint for certain. Human Revolution and Mankind Divided, just give them kind of a 4K upres and you'll be fine on that front. And of course, more games in both those IPs would be more than welcome. Really look forward to what the future holds with Embracer if they actually do anything with their shit. I've gotten a couple things, sure. I got that Red Faction Guerrilla Marsden edition, but no word on whether or not they're going to make a Guerrilla 2. Not Armageddon. Armageddon sucked. Give me Guerrilla 2. I think they're making a new Destroy All Humans. I'm not positive, but they have all these IP, and they don't seem to be doing anything with them other than the vagaries of saying 150 some odd projects. And who knows how many of them are actually in work now, considering that they seem to be cutting things. They could have cut down to a scant 120 for all we know. Anyways, I'm sure that as time goes on, we'll be hearing more about what's coming from Embracer. Why are you popping up pop-ups on me? Jesus Christ. Don't do that, Windows. Bad, Brave browser. All right, moving on to the next topic here. This has, I don't know how I feel about this. This is a press release from Electronic Arts right here talking about how they have inked a 3-game deal with Marvel. Note, this is, I know it's easy to make the comparison to the 10-year exclusivity deal that they had with Star Wars, but this isn't based on number of years. This is just based on number of games, which feel better. Also, it's not exclusive. They're just saying they're going to be making 3 games from it. Cool. Let's go to the press release itself. EA today announced that they will collaborate with Marvel on a long-term deal to develop at least 3 new action-adventure games that will be available for consoles and PC. Each of these games will be their own original stories set in the Marvel universe, with the first title development being a single-player, third-person action-adventure Iron Man game coming out of Motive Studios. I don't know how I feel about that. See, you can take some of what you learned from Anthem, which I know I'm invoking Anthem, which was a terrible game, but it did feel the flight controls in that game I thought felt awesome. I think you can take some of what you learned from Anthem when it comes to walking around in a giant suit and transport that to an Iron Man game. So I think EA actually might be in a rather unique place to pull this off due to any experience of Anthem. But note, it's not being made by BioWare, it's being made by Motive. That said, EA is trying to bring everyone under one umbrella. Talent is constantly being shared by all the teams. So I wouldn't be surprised if people who worked on Anthem, who might still be at BioWare, who haven't suffered that BioWare burnout that we've been hearing has been happening over the past few years, might lend their talents to Motive. We'll see. Back to the press release. Developed in collaboration with Marvel, the Iron Man game will feature an original narrative that taps into the rich history of the character, channeling the complexity, charisma, and creative genius of Tony Stark, enabling players to feel what it's like to truly play as Iron Man. Only matters if they let me drink like a son of a bitch. I want to play a drunken Iron Man bouncing into road signs, demon in a bottle style story arc. That would be great if they made a game based on that. The team is being led by Oliver Prolu, who brings experience working on past Marvel titles like Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, and is joined by a dedicated team of passionate industry veterans, including Ian Fraser, Mylène Lemano, and JF Poirier at the studio. Once again, forgive me if I am mispronouncing those names. I'm also kind of happy to see that the Guardians of the Galaxy people are working on, some of the Guardians of the Galaxy people are working on this. That Guardians of the Galaxy game, shockingly good for what it was. I feel kind of bad that it was just released out to die. If you ever see it on sale on Steam or happen to get it on game, I don't know if it's on Game Pass or not, but if you ever get a chance to play it for relatively cheap, do so. It's a solid game, surprisingly good. What the other 2 Marvel games could be, I have no idea. We know that it's not going to be Spider-Man. We know it's not going to be Wolverine because those are being handed up by Insomniac. I believe the Wolverine game is, as well as Spider-Man 2. There's been rumors of a Black Panther game, but I don't know if that's EA or someone else doing it. Interesting. I need to actually give this one some thought because I don't know what other games EA would be suited to for doing as far as Marvel goes. Other than Iron Man, like I said, they have access to what they've learned from Anthem through BioWare. And I still think, despite how much of a train wreck Anthem was, the flying in that game and the way controlling an armored suit felt in that game was pretty nice. So I can see them bringing that over. I'm trying to think of other games that might fit in this genre. You know what could be interesting? Is a Cold War themed Winter Soldier game where you're playing the Winter Soldier when he's still under the influence of the Soviet Union, and give it like a 60s and 70s and 80s techno spy feeling. I think that actually has chops to make it a fantastic game. I would love to see them do that. I don't think they would, but that would be cool. Anyways, let me know what you guys think could be of these other 2 games down below. We have some quick things I'm going to plow through here real quick. First of up, Spry Fox is joining next week. Now, who the hell next week? Netflix. Now, who the hell is Spry Fox? You probably don't know. They mainly do casual games. The only reason why I'm not even going to bother reading through the article, the only reason why I'm bringing this up or the press release rather, is because Netflix is continuing their acquisition of studios that seem to be aligned with their casual market push. Netflix is actively trying to get into games. This is going to make this the 6th in-house game studio at Netflix, joining the likes of many other studios most of you have never heard of because, like I said, they tend to focus on casual fare, which, awesome. I think there actually is an opening for Netflix to do that because all these games can be easily played on the TV with minimal controls. You can probably use a remote, TV remote, which I'm assuming is what they're trying to do here. Or at the very least, if you have Netflix on a mobile device, you push the button and go right into it, and it's a mobile game. That seems to be what Netflix is going after right now. We'll see what comes out of these studios, but that is definitely the vibe if you take a look at their acquisition list. Other news stories as we get about halfway through here. This is from PC Gamer. Riven, the sequel to Myst, is getting a remake. Now, for those of you who are under the age of 30, you might not be aware of how huge the Myst games were, but Myst was a juggernaut in the early to mid 90s. Cyan Worlds, the company that made those games, had the PC market by the balls. These things were massive in the cultural zeitgeist. And Cyan knows that. They kept remaking Myst over and over again. You had like Myst, Real Myst for 25th anniversary edition of Myst. I think the most recent one came out not even a year ago and had like VR added to it. But they've never really paid attention to Riven or Exile or any of the other Myst games until recently, to the article itself. On the 25th anniversary of the release of Riven, the sequel to the mega hit adventure game Myst, developer Cyan has announced that it's been redone from a ground-up modern remake. Riven is one of the most highly regarded games in Cyan's history, the studio said in a FAQ, explaining why it waited 25 years to commit to a Riven remake. We didn't want to approach it lightly or frivolously. Cyan is a small indie studio, and we wanted to make sure we could take on such difficult, costly, and complicated endeavor and do it well. Not to bash Cyan either, but I think it might also help that their last game, Abduction, still tried to stick to that Myst feeling of being lost in a different world and trying to figure out a series of puzzles. I don't think that actually did too well. And their upcoming Firmament game seems to be having a little bit of problems as well. So when you need a quick infusion of cash and you're a studio that has a bunch of old hits, of course you remake them. It's a nice way to get some extra money. That said, knock yourself out. It's been 25 goddamn years since Riven's seen any kind of release like this. I am super excited to see what they might do with it. And especially interested if they're going to change up some of the puzzles on it so that way you still have the same feel of Riven, but you're going into it with fresh eyes and not knowing what the solution would be off the top of your head if you played the original one 25 years ago. God damn, that was a long time ago. We're at the point now where there are people who are hardcore gamers who weren't even alive when the PlayStation 1 was out. That's something to think about. I don't like that. So yes, expect a sequel to a Riven remake rather in who knows how long it's going to take. I would expect it within the next couple of years or so. Also on the remake train, CD Projekt Red has announced that they're making a remake of The Witcher. Here I have an article via IGN. CD Projekt Red has announced that it will remake The Witcher in Unreal Engine 5 alongside Fool's Theory. Note they're giving up the the Red Engine is what the original games were running off. They're getting rid of that, it seems, and going to Unreal Engine 5. Awesome, thank you. In fact, I would want more and more studios to abandon their weird proprietary engines unless they can make them hum. EA, I'm looking at you with Frostbite. It works on some games, but fucking stop trying to put it into everything because it doesn't work for everything. To the article. This is one of 5 new games the company announced earlier this month and previously went by the codename Canis Majoris. If you remember, a couple weeks ago we talked about all their upcoming stuff that they had planned. This was the codename of one of them. This will be a true remake, with the company saying it will be rebuilt from the ground up in Unreal Engine 5 and is in early stages of development. As part of its announcement, the company cautioned, "We want to do this right, so please be patient. It's going to be a while before we can sell more details." Smart. Don't even talk about it for years. In fact, I'm a little bothered that they even mentioned this much of it already. CD Projekt more than any other studio, just needs to shut the fuck up about what they're making and go, here it is. This is how it looks like. It'll be out in 3 months, and have a perfectly polished game, because they need to wash off the stench that is the Cyberpunk release. I know Cyberpunk is in a much better state than it is right now, but even in its better improved state, you cannot look at that game and tell me that was originally promised. I've gone on this song and dance many times in the past. I'm not going to get too deep into it here, but CD Projekt Red was its own worst enemy when it came to hyping up that game. So I'm glad that they said, "Hey, we're making this. We'll get back to you when we get back to you. No dates, no releases, no delays. Just say, hey, here it is, and here it's ready to go." Awesome. That first Witcher game isn't necessarily that old. I think it just had its 15th anniversary, but it is rough. I loved it when it came out, but in the light of where that series has gone, it is real rough to get through, and I'm glad to see them remaking it. It very much needs a new coat of paint. More than the coat of paint, let me rephrase that. It needs to be just worked up from the ground up again, because that first game is just hard to get through now. The second one and the third one still look amazing. Don't need to worry about that, other than your typical remastering that happens with everything now these days. A little bit of business news I want to get into real quick, too. We have this from Axios. Game Pass subscriber target for second yet. That's a weird headline. I swear that headline wasn't there earlier. What you need to know is that Microsoft misses Xbox Game Pass RR growth for target year. Oh, because I had that marked off. There we go. Microsoft misses Xbox Game Pass subscriber target for second year. Seems like Microsoft might be slowing down on their initial plan subscriptions to Game Pass, but I don't think it's as dire as you might think, and I'll get into why here in a second. Subscriber growth for Microsoft's all-you-can-play Game Pass subscription fell far short of an annual company target tied to CEO Satya Nadella's pay, according to new financial finding. Microsoft targeted a 73% growth rate for Game Pass in its fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022, and as part of its performance incentives from Nadella and other top executives. But the service only achieved 28% growth. The reason why we're getting all this, by the way, is because we just had quarterly results drop for a lot of tech companies, Sony and Microsoft included. That's 2 misses in a row. The company also failed to hit on executive pay Game Pass target last year after exceeding it in 2020. Microsoft doesn't publicize the actual Game Pass subscriber target counts, but said in the filing Xbox division has delivered over 25 million Game Pass subscriptions. That's a lot of them. It seems like they're really hoping for a lot more, almost a comically large number. Now, I know the profitability of Game Pass has been a subject for many a year, because it seems to be a little too good for what they charge for it, especially the way they let you just stack on top of subscriptions on sales. I know people who bought 5 years of Game Pass when they were doing it for like $1 a month or something like that, and they're sitting on subscriptions that they've paid maybe $60 total on, and they're good until like 2025. So that, I'm sure, is definitely eating to the numbers. Now, why is this kind of important? Well, or rather, why is this relevant, I should say? Because going from a 73% growth rate to a 28% growth rate is a huge miss on the bean counters. They dropped something somewhere. And Phil Spencer kind of has been coming out and saying, hey, the Game Pass subscription model is profitable for us, and he's finally using that term profitable. When talking about things like this, they had to be very cagey with their words. For the long time, he wasn't saying profitable. Now he finally actually did say profitable for us. So something to consider is that it's actually probably making money now, but not nearly as much as they were hoping for. It apparently accounts for 10 to 50% of the company's content and services revenue, which is a huge chunk, by the way. 10% of your revenue is massive. However, in remarks transcribed by The Verge, Spencer said Game Pass growth was incredible on PC but slowed down on console, mainly because at some point you've reached everyone on console who wants to subscribe. You only have so many Xbox owners compared to PC owners, and eventually you reach maximum saturation point, whereas there's a lot more room to grow on PC because there's just more versatility out there. Game Pass growth also might have been stalled due to the lack of major releases. In the last 2 years, Microsoft has published few big exclusive games, especially compared to rivals Sony and Nintendo, neither of which bundle new releases in their subscription offerings. That is undoubtedly affecting Game Pass's growth because Microsoft hasn't released shit. They just haven't. I have Game Pass. I play it for the third-party support. I can't think of anything that I've played from Microsoft itself that has released over the past 2 years. However, there is also another thing that's happening that might be resulting in people no longer, or subscription rather, to Game Pass slowing down. People are going back outside again. People are taking trips again. Well, they would be if the economy was in the shitter. But the original surge of console sales and game sales that happened as lockdowns around the globe were hitting about a year or two ago, it's dying down. People are no longer as housebound as they once were. They're actually going outside again. While they might not be taking the vacations, they're going out to the beach that they live near it. They're going out to the park. They're enjoying what little eating out they can. They're not just stuck at home playing video games all year. And it's not just Microsoft that's having issues with their subscription services. This article here from Video Game Chronicle shows Sony is also having those problems too. PlayStation Plus has lost 2 million subscribers since its revamp. That's according to Sony's latest subscriber estimates, which were published on Tuesday as part of its fiscal year 2022 quarter 2 financial results. First quarter since it relaunched the revamped PS Plus. Now, for those of you in the Sony PlayStation Plus ecosystem, you know that they recently changed to different tiers. There's like premium, essential, and the third one. I'm not going to get into the details of what's in every one of them right now, but know that they did kind of do a whole new rollout on what may or may not come with the new expansions. They made it way more complicated than it needs to be, in my opinion. Back to the article. Despite the revamp, PlayStation Plus subs declined for the third quarter in a row. The total number of subscribers stood at 45.4 million for the 3 months ended September 30th, 2022, down from 47.3 million the previous quarter. Note that is a reduction of subs, whereas the Microsoft Game Pass only had a reduction in the new subscribers of subs. At least that is what we're inferring from the numbers. PlayStation monthly active users were also down during the 3-month period at 102 million, a decline from 104 million a year earlier and 103 million in the previous quarter. This appears to be Sony's lowest MUA figure since it began reporting this data in early 2020. When asked about the decline on the earnings call on Tuesday, Sony CFO Hiroki Totoki blamed declining third-party games and PlayStation 4 sales and, quote, more people going outdoors. I do think that the lockdown restrictions and people just getting outside over the past year compared to the prior one is a big component in a lot of this. And it doesn't seem to be that much of a drop in this case. And in Xbox's case, it wasn't a reduction in subs. It's just a slowing down in new subs. People are going outside. Additionally, also, that's not to say that the global economy isn't fucking things up right now either. People are cutting too. If you're only playing Xbox or PlayStation once a month, you might be tempted to cut here and there. You might be tempted to go, you know what? I don't need to pay the yearly sub anymore. I'll do a month to month when a new game comes out. And in Sony's case, with their revamped PlayStation Plus pricing, their tiers kind of suck for the value that you're getting. Let's be honest here. There's really nothing that they added other than making things way more complicated and seemingly charging way too much for things that should have been just folded into PlayStation Plus for an additional $10 a year. And they went well beyond that. So I wouldn't be surprised some people are just like, I'm out. I'm done. I have one more news story that I want to get into real quick that's video game tangentially related. It's from The Verge. HBO Max appears to confirm January 15th premiere for The Last of Us TV adaptation. I'll spare you the rigmarole. All you need to know is that it seems like they might have accidentally leaked on their own that The Last of Us TV show, starring Pedro Pascal and I think her name is Bella Ramsey, might be earlier than we thought it was going to be. For the longest time, HBO Max was just saying that The Last of Us was coming at a nebulous 2023 date, which could be anywhere from January to December. Well, seems like January 15th might be what's coming, according to some online material that was found. I'm looking forward to seeing this myself. I don't know if I'm not like excited for it because they're just retelling the story of the first game, which I've played multiple times already. And in fact, they just re-released again with The Last of Us Part 1. However, what you might be interested in if you have no interest in the series itself but are interested in the video games is that I would not be surprised if this January 15th date for the Last of Us TV show also coincided with the release of whatever the hell Last of Us Factions is going to be. Sony is very big on their cross-media marketing these days, so I would be shocked if they didn't at least try to take advantage of the fact that the Last of Us TV show is coming out in January to also simultaneously, or at least within a few weeks, launch their multiplayer version of The Last of Us, whatever that may actually entail. We'll see. They've been still mum about it, but we have another couple months before January. We have the Game Awards right around the corner. I would not be surprised if we saw whatever the Factions equivalent to be announced there. And maybe even an official release date, despite these little hints that we're seeing on online media for the Last of Us TV show as well. The Game Awards feel like a fitting place to announce all that stuff. That does it for the news. I have a few new releases that I want to get into before I wrap things up here. Out this week, we have Harvestella on the PC and Switch. Harvestella is an all-new life simulation RPG from Square Enix. Lead a life of self-sufficiency with your vibrant house as a base and cooperate with allies to overcome various threats. Square Enix has been cranking out a lot of minor releases over the past few months. You had Deofield Chronicles, you have that Voice of the Cards games, you had recently Star Ocean coming out, the Valkyrie, not profile game, Valkyrie, oh, god damn it, Elysium, I think. Square's been really cranking out these smaller releases, and I don't know what's going on there. It almost feels a little bit conspiracy theory time, like they're cleaning out their catalog before selling off to someone. That seems to be what Square Enix is doing, is that they're trying to release things out as quick as they can, dump a lot of weight with the selling of their Western studios to make themselves look very attractive to an upcoming buy or purchase from someone, so that way whoever takes them over is not going to be saddled with all this other shit in development here. That's what I think is happening, and I think that's why they've cranked out so many games over the past couple months. Tinfoil hat time, of course, of that. Also out this week, WRC Generations. It's a racing game. It comes out on PC, PS4, PS5, Series S and X. Rise to all the challenges of the most comprehensive, realistic, and demanding rally simulator ever developed. Dive into the heart of the action and drive the cars in the 2022 WRC Championship, including new hybrid models. I'm not going to lie, I know nothing about racing games. I just saw it and figured I'd mention it. Watermelon, good to have you, by the way. Nice to see you in chat. Also out this week, Ghost Song on the PC, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, and Series X. On a desolate moon of Loran, a long-dormant dead suit awakens from slumber. Journey beneath the surface of the atmosphere 2D adventure of self-discovery and ancient mysteries and comic terror. Explore winding caverns and acquire new abilities to unearth this alien world's long-buried secrets. This is a 2D action platformer. Looks really cool, kind of into the art style on it. These games are very quickly becoming a dime a dozen on Steam, unfortunately, but this one did stand out a little bit. I'd recommend you take a look at it if you like the 2D action platformer style of game. Let's to chat real quick. You saw that games years ago when you were searching for Metroidvanias. Yeah, Ghost, yes. It is finally coming out. It's coming out this week, and it has a Metroidvania vibe to it. I'm loath to call it a Metroidvania, though, because I just don't know enough about it to see if it really is one or if it's just a 2D action platformer. Also out this week, The Chant on PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series X. A single-player, third-person horror action-adventure game set on a remote spiritual island retreat. To survive, you must craft, fight, and escape the psychedelic horror set loose when a spiritual ritual goes wrong and awakens a dimension of cosmic terror. Here's the thing. I don't like survival crafting games, but I love me some psychedelic horror, some cosmic horror. I might have to take a look at this. It actually does look cool. The fact that it is a single-player story with crafting elements involved, as opposed to just survive and get off of this thing, it seems, is really speaking to me. It's not like, say, Stranded Deep or anything like that, at least at first glance. Keep in mind, this is just my dime store look at the video. I might have, if I had to pick a game to play this week, I would say it's Enchant. A little bit of a slower week. You have a bunch of smaller mid-tier stuff coming out, the small tier. I picked the ones that seemed worthy of attention. I know I'm not a car guy, but that franchise has been around forever, so I figured I'd mention that one too. Looking forward to getting hold of at least Enchant and Ghost Song for sure. Maybe Harvestella even as well. Kind of gonna sound weird, but I'm kind of craving a Harvest Moon style game. Oh, weird, I know. Go figure. Anyways, that wraps up for new releases, which means that does it for the show as well. This has been GamePoints episode 322, and thank you all for showing up. We do stream this show live every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time right here at Twitch TV/GamePoints, so please drop on by and feel free to join the conversation. If you can't watch us live, however, you can watch us at any myriad of video hosting platforms, Rumble, YouTube, BitChute, etc. And there's Discord you can join if you want to take a look at all the stories that I brought up here today. The link is provided down there as below. Also, if you're at one of those video hosting platforms, the links to the stories will be down there too. You can follow myself at CapitalistPig21 on Twitter. And if you like what you saw here for some god unknown reason, you know what streamers want. Like, bits, subs, follows, all that good stuff. Anyways, that kind of does it here for me. So thank you all for showing up. And until next week, I'm out of here.